Asha, greetings and goodwill to you all once again, my fellow natural, native, earthly humans, the world over. Yes, you don't know. This is yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher, and welcome to part 10, the continuation of my series of talks titled Can Africa Be Set Free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright men, be set free? Now, if you haven't yet watched or listened to part 1 through to part 9 of this series, I ask that you please do so before going forward with this part 10, or that you please do so as soon as possible. Now, I ended part 9, and I promised that I would continue talking about false prophets and identifying them. And I would break it down and dissect it and thus make it a little bit more plainer, simpler, so that those of you who didn't get it may end up getting it, getting the points that I'm making. And in order to do so, or in order to do that, I think that it is quite necessary that I should talk to you some more and share with you a bit more about this thing called language, the power of language, and in particular, the power and control that the language of imperialism and colonialism have on our minds and our lives, and the power and control that the imperialists and colonists have on our minds and our lives. Now, if you are an African, or more correctly, because we are not really African, that's a name that was given to us. That's not the original name. But however, if you are an African, or more correctly, if you are a natural native earthly human of soul, a human of soul, and with soul of soul, yes, the human entity and energy with which lives, feels, thinks, and wills. If you are a soul man or woman of the sun, a human of the sun from the motherland, Alkebuland, identifiable by your highly enriched melanin body and highly enriched carbon skin complexion, etc. I ask that you please bear in mind at all times that this language is not our language. I ask that you please don't get too cocky with it, because maybe you think and believe that you know it, or that you have a degree or some degrees of knowledge of it or in it, and can read it, write it, mimic it, and speak it well. The fact is that it is not our language. It is not the language of our soul. It is not the language of our source, God, gods, and the most honorable African ancestors. And regardless of how articulate we may or may not be, regardless of how learned or impressive we may sound, regardless of how journalistic we may be, regardless of how scholarly, lawyerly, because you know they are the speakers that confound so many people, or presidentially or professionally we may present ourselves, you name it or you name them, but the fact still remains that this is not our language. Whose is it? This is the language of coldness. This is the language of dampness. This is a lifeless language. This is the language of death and destruction. This is the language of imperialism. This is the language of colonialism. This is the language of demonism. This is the language of the imperialists and the colonists, or the colonialists. Thus, a language of subjugation. This is a language of mental, spiritual, and physical colonization. This is a language of oppression. This is a language of deception, division, and confusion. And as I heard Muta Baruch, a famous poet, among many other things, said years ago, that this is a trichology language, and I agree. At the time I didn't quite understand what he was talking about. A trichology language. This is not, and I repeat, this is not the language of our source and of our most honorable ancestors. This is the alien invaders, warmongers, colonizers, conquerors, butchers, genociders, human traffickers, oppressors, slave makers and slave traders, slave masters, human exploiters, monsters, if you will. And just to name a few, it's their language. In fact, ask any fool what language or whose language is this, and they will immediately respond with the right answer and tell you that it is the English language. And in reality, what does that mean? It means that it belongs to the English or the British people. It is from and it belongs to them. And it is just one of the many Caucasoid languages from the Caucasian language family tree. For those of you who quite understand the language tree, there are many other languages from the same source, from the same group, from the same tree. And as I have mentioned elsewhere before, that language is a gift from the God or gods of a people, the God or gods of a people, and for us or for them to communicate with it, him, her, or them. So for those group of people who may believe or who believe that their God is a it or is a it, so-called no gender, etc. Their God would give them a unique language to communicate with it, or for them to communicate with it. Those who believe that their God is a man, their God would give them a unique language to communicate with him. For those who believe that their God is a woman, their God would give them a unique language to communicate with her. And for those who believe that their God is a group of gods, aka Elohim, the God would give them a unique language to communicate with them. So now you know that speaking a language is not only communicating with possible your fellow humans, but also communicating with God or gods. And by default, or consciously or unconsciously, the God or gods of that language. And for your information, the English or the British people, God or gods, gave them their language and also inspired them to do what they do with it. And we are the strangers within their gates. And we don't know their language. We were never taught their language enough for us to know it. And as mentioned before, it is not and it would not be in their best interest for us to be taught and know their language. What we are taught and what we were taught and what we know is just a degree of their language. And for most of us, a watered down, bastardized version or versions of their language. Now, the question is, do you or have you ever wondered why the first thing or the first two things that the alien invaders, warmongers, colonizers, conquerors, oppressors, and devils did and are still doing when they invaded, conquered, and colonized our people on the continent of Africa and everywhere they go on the planet? One was to grudgingly and violently ravage, loot, tear down, desecrate, deface, burn, and destroy all our altars, temples, shrines, sacred spaces, and sacred places of our most honorable ancestors and dear gods. and they would then immediately erect or build their own. Do you know or have you ever wondered why? Number two, do you know or have you ever wondered why the second evil thing that they did and still do is to violently, scornfully, and mockingly condemn, and in as much as they possibly can, erase the native language and mother tongue of the people that they colonize? Have you ever wondered? Do you know or have you ever wondered why? Well, first, let me answer number two. Question number two first. It is because they know that language unites a people, and that unity is strength. And they know that when a people speak one language that unites them, there is nothing that is, or there is nothing that will be impossible for them to do. Secondly, the reason why they grudgingly and violently ravage, loot, tear down, desecrate, deface, burn, and destroy all our altars, temples, shrines, sacred spaces, and sacred places to our most honorable ancestors and their gods, and just as quick they would erect their own, it is because they know, understand, and overstand the deep spiritual powers and metaphysical meanings and significance of both language, words, sacred places and sacred spaces, altars, shrines, symbols, etc. And a people, they know that a people communicating with the souls and spirits of their most honorable ancestors and their gods and goddesses. They know. And they also know, and know that they know, that as long as this spiritual knowledge, ritual contacts, and communication with their ancestors and their god or gods remain with the people, that they can never truly conquer or subdue them. And that it would be only a matter of time, when the principle of rhythm would manifest and revenge and retribution would befall them. Now I ask that you please join me in part 11, for the continuation of Can Africa Be Set Free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, be set free? In the meantime and between time, He is willing that you be more and more and much, much more, and definitely not be less. Don't be less, aka blessed. Don't let no one bless you. Words, sound, energy, frequency, vibration, but be more in your becoming. Be more and more and much, much more. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, 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 I say.